On a Friends Friday, my friend in today, Gregory Howell, not a native of Pueblo, but boy, you're digging in there deep with all the stuff that's going on, and you got your hand in all kinds of stuff. Is what's amazing. Now you were telling me about some of the preservation stuff that's going on. You're part of that too, right?
Yeah, and that really, as I said earlier, when I first arrived in Pueblo, I just looked around, and all you have to do is look. Whether you're looking at, say, Central High School and Keating Junior High School, whether you're looking, at the Thatcher Building, or you look at, you look at, Alpha Beta, Water Tower Place. You look at these structures, and they tell a story in their own right. So one thing, when I do economic development, which is really one of the things that I do a lot when I do consulting, and I've done this with other cities around the world, is when you have what we call adaptive reuse. And I love adaptive reuse because there is this spirit, there is this notion that we recycle cans, we recycle bottles, we recycle newspapers, cardboard, all of that.
Right.
We need to recycle buildings because the National Trust for Historic Preservation, one of their 10 principles, which I love, is that the greenest building is the one that's already standing.
Sure.
And Pueblo is... There's
loaded
an abundance.
with them.
Well, and this says a lot about the history too, because this town has been a part of the industrial military complex.
Right.
I mean, you've got the chemical depot, which is now Puebloplex, and what's happening out there
it's
is
amazing
extraordinary.
Out there. Yeah.
I mean, that is at an international level, and especially now with SwissPod, Puebloplex, and TTCI. We're going to have one of the most robust research and testing facilities for Hyperloop. Now, we had a moment a few years ago when we were at the forefront of the Hyperloop conversation, which was Pueblo being one of the ends and then going all the way up to Cheyenne, Wyoming. That was a movement that, sadly, there was a failure in leadership, shall we say, in terms of how that evolved. But now we actually have an actual, SwissPod is Europe's premier leader in terms of Hyperloop
like
technology.
Super fast train.
Oh my God, 700 miles an hour. You'll be able to go to Denver in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You stop at, Colorado Springs in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Crazy.
pretty extraordinary. Yeah, it is. It's just fun because at the end of the day, it's all about the research. It's all about the testing. And TTCI, I mean, that, if you're putting a train on the rails in North America, you got to test it. And that's been out there, since the beginning of time, practically.
Right. Oh, they test everything out there.
Exactly. So, but this notion of adaptive reuse is really important because it is a big part of economic development because we don't build railways anymore. We don't build chemical depots anymore. We don't build meatpacking plants anymore.
Right.
We don't build these huge schools like we used to.
Right.
So to be able to take those existing structures and adaptively reuse them is perhaps one of the smartest ways because you retain the integrity of that neighborhood, of that area. And to be honest with you, many of those structures, as I was saying earlier with the meatpacking plant, those open floor plans are exactly what everyone wants. They don't want those little cubicles, one after the other.
And those things were like all overbuilt.
Oh my God. I mean, the load capacity at Water Tower Place is 2,500 pounds per square inch. That's unheard of. I mean, we just don't even do that anymore. So when I do my work, it's adaptive reuse, it's economic development, and it's tourism. So I've been a commissioner on the Historic Preservation Commission for several years. So what we do is historic properties that are already designated as, they could be local, they could be state, or they could be federal. And we have quite a few. I think we may have more per capita than most cities in the United States because we have some extraordinary buildings that are on the historic register. So we, as the commissioners, really kind of are the ambassadors, the custodians for these structures. So we have what's known as a certificate of appropriateness. So if someone wants to do something with one of these buildings, it's a very thoughtful, very mindful process. We work with all of the owners, and there's a process that goes, we work with city planning, and we just make sure that it works for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just, I think, really important. And so that's been fun. I'm going to be the chair of that commission, which will be exciting because there's a lot. We have Keating Junior High School, which is being converted. We have Water Tower Place. We have Fuel and Iron, which is an amazing concept.
I
which
went
is
in and
Holmes
toured
Hardware.
that. It's unbelievable, yeah.
So Nathan Stern and his team, they've been doing an extraordinary job, and now they're doing the pop-ups. So Bingo Burger is the location for a series of 5 pop-ups. we've already seen 2 of the chefs. So Richard Warner and Mary Oreskovich, they were the first, and they have a spicy chicken, diavolo chicken, which is this spicy green chili chicken, which they introduced. So they'll be one of the kitchens that's going to be at the Fuel and Iron Food Hall. And then Chris Deuce just recently introduced his ramen. So his ramen noodles, and they were so delicious. So we've seen 2 of the 5. But that's a really powerful thing when you can take a historic structure, adaptively reuse it, and then tie that into economic development and then tourism. Because Pueblo has not been at the forefront of tourism. It hasn't been a tourist destination.
Right.
But now what we do have to offer, I mean, these stories are incredible. When I started the tours at Water Tower Place, we had 4,800 people come through in the first 18 months. So people want to hear these stories.
They want to know.
Yeah,
they want to see.
They want to know.
First time I was around any of that, a friend of mine took me through the cannery in San Francisco.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I'm thinking, I thought, all those old buildings in Pueblo, man, somebody needs to do this. Of course, we don't have the people and all that, you know. Well, that's starting to change now, obviously.
It is. And, it is a really interesting mix of locals who have been here multi-generationally. I'm an outsider, but, you give me some good stories, you give me good infrastructure, I will work with anyone, and that's a hard mix to find. And
absolutely.
I'm now on the board of directors, a special assignment to the Economic Development Council of Colorado. And this is an umbrella organization, an amazing, it's literally every city in the state, every county in the state. So not
just Pueblo then.
No, it's the entire state. And we meet. And so this October, we'll be bringing the Economic Development Council, their annual conference to Pueblo. So this is like 300 of the top economic developers coming. So I'm really excited. We work weekly to bring this event to Pueblo. And it's going to be the first time for many in the state to see what's going on, because everyone keeps on, what's going on in Pueblo? I keep on hearing about all of these really interesting and unique projects. So that is exciting because it'll be one of the first opportunities for such a large audience, especially after COVID. People are just hungry just to get out.
Get out and do something. Yeah. It's a Friends Friday. Gregory Howell in here. And Friends Friday brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's greatest hits. KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in here today, Gregory Howell, not a native of Pueblo, but boy, he's digging deep into Pueblo here. And that's kind of how we've become friends, is because, what's going on in Pueblo. And one of your latest projects here that you're involved with is bringing back the Pueblo Star-Journal. Now, this is quite the deal.
It is, and I love how you just used our tagline, digging deep. Our tagline is dig deeper.
It is dig deep. I didn't even know that.
I know, and you just used it.
Well, how we used to do it, my mom and dad got the Pueblo Chieftain, but my grandma got the Star-Journal because the Star-Journal came out in the afternoon.
Right.
Chieftain came out in the morning, and then there'd be different stories in the Star-Journal than there was the Chieftain and everything. But you're bringing back the Pueblo Star-Journal, and you've brought me a copy here that I'm looking at. This is awesome. I'm going to tell you that. This is awesome because everything in here is Pueblo. Everything in here from start to finish is Pueblo, and you don't see that anywhere else.
No, and that really, to its core, is and this is an issue across the country, across the world, is that we're losing our local news organizations. And it's happening for a lot of different reasons, but there's been a concerted effort. I mean, there's been a group of us, local Puebloans, some people from outside of Pueblo who are in the news industry, but we're finding that news is a community asset, and if you lose your local voice, you really are not informed. You cannot even make an informed decision if you really don't have the information. So this discussion with the Pueblo Star-Journal started long before there was any change at the Chieftain. Because when I first arrived here, there was the Chieftain. I loved the Pulp. Pulp was a phenomenal alternative news magazine that was published monthly. So we had, sources. And then, of course, the sale of the Chieftain to Gatehouse. And then, of course, it moved through a massive buyout, to Gannett and to, USA Today. And so we've really lost our own unique local voice. And one thing that's happening throughout the United States is this shift from for-profit to nonprofit. So we're established as a nonprofit, hyper-local news publication. And so right now what we're doing, and the team that we've brought together, I mean, it's old Pueblo, it's new
Well, that's
Pueblo.
it. I look through there and I see names I recognize and think, oh, wow.
Yeah. No, and that was really important because, I think where the world is going today, and because Pueblo has always been this destination for diversity. I mean, from day one. I mean, you can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we talked about earlier. Yeah. But it's that messiness of Pueblo that really makes this place so attractive and kind of sticky, shall we say. I mean, you really, it's an extraordinary place. And so for us, we made a commitment to really do just local news.
Well, that's amazing because you've captured that and then some here. And as you just mentioned, you got a lot of local people that are being part of this and writing stuff and bylines and that. But so you say a nonprofit newspaper. How does somebody get one of these then?
So what we're doing right now, just to give people an idea, so we're starting out monthly right now.
Okay.
And you can go to pueblostarjournal.org, and that's our website. So we have a 24/7 digital platform that you can also download the print edition because we're trying to find the balance. Who needs print? I'm old school. I love having a print
have that in the paper. Have that in your hand. Yeah.
So we have right now 18 pickup locations in Pueblo. This blew us away. We started with just 8. And in a matter of a week, there is a map. It's a Google map that's been designed, and it has little PSJ logos on it. And you can find every pickup location from Avondale to the north side, south side. We're even looking for one now up in Beulah. But this actually gives you the opportunity to pick up an actual paper print edition. And when we first launched this on March 18th, within 5 days, 6,000 people had visited that map.
Wow.
That blew me away.
Wow.
So then we expanded, and now you can pick them up at the universities. You can pick them up at the chambers, the Latino Chamber, the Greater Chamber. You can pick them up at merchants, businesses. Check out the map. But that was one of our real desires is we really wanted to start from the sidewalks of Pueblo. We wanted individuals to say, have you seen the Pueblo Star Journal?
Have you seen what's
Here's
in there?
A copy of it.
Yeah.
So some people, are perfectly fine with a digital edition. But we're printing it at the Chieftain. This was an interesting story because, we wanted to keep all the jobs here.
Right.
And one of the real powerful parts about the Chieftain is that they've got this amazing printing press. And it runs basically 24/7.
Wow.
So most of the publications in Southern Colorado run through that. And we were finding that all of the new jobs were all going up to Wyoming. And we didn't want to start a hyper-local newspaper and then say, oh, by the way, this is being printed by
Cheyenne
people in
or something.
Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is exactly where it is, Cheyenne. So for us, this has been exciting. So what our goal is, we'll be issuing this monthly through April, May, and June. And if our funding all comes through, which we're working diligently on right now, is we will go weekly. And our goal is when we go weekly that we will print 70,000 issues, and those will be delivered free of charge to every household within Pueblo County. So we just want everyone to have an opportunity, and you'll get it on Thursdays. So that kind of gives you a guide for the weekend.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I mean, I just had a story the other day where a woman who lived on the south side, multi-generational Pueblo, and the 5 families that lived at the end of the block did not have enough money to buy multiple subscriptions. So they bought one subscription, and then after one family read it, they would fold it nicely and iron it all up, give it to the next family. And then this one family, when it finally became feasible, they had enough money, they bought a subscription. And not only did they get a subscription in the morning, the Chieftain, they got a subscription for the evening Star Journal.
That was big time. Yeah.
I mean, these stories are just amazing. I mean, it's amazing. You talk about emotional hooks. But we're really pleased that we've been able to pull it together. Plus, we have a journalist from CSUP. Some of the stories, Mr. Zamora, who's this young writer, and I guess you know.
Brandon,
I know Brandon well.
Yeah.
This was his first official paid. I mean, he got paid for this. This is his byline, his first professional. Yeah, so for us, that's really important because it does need to be a voice of the community.
Sure.
And we're going to be doing neighborhood news bureaus. in partnership with CSUP, which will create this citizen journalism project. So we're going to get stories from all the neighborhoods. So we're really excited about it.
That is awesome. Pueblo Star Journal. Just has a nice ring to it.
It does. And it's been around for